So, hi everyone. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us for another Whisky Wicks, brought to you by Mind Digital. I know usually what we do on the show is we talk about trading strategies, interview traders. This week, though, we're going to talk a bit about Chainlink. Now, my reason for that is, as everybody should know by now, Duncan works with us and he keeps nagging us about Chainlink. The more I looked into it, the more I personally started liking it. Now, for me personally, like beyond the price going up and all that, my reason for liking it was that it has a community behind it that are just as passionate as how Bitcoiners are towards Bitcoin, and that's not common nowadays in the space. So, we have Raymond and Patrick here today to talk to us about Chainlink. They've been Chainlink for a while. I'll let them intro themselves. Without further ado, let's get started. Patrick, Raymond, guys like to intro yourselves?
Yeah, sure thing.
Did you want us to run through the Prezo now, or just
yeah,
right. Yeah.
If you want to do that first, yeah, we can do that first. Okay. Yeah. So, guys, you can intro it.
Okay, sweet. I guess thanks everyone for jumping on. My name's Raymond. I'm one of the co-founders of Secured Links and Reputation.link, or Chainlink Oracle Reputation. Like Omar mentioned, I've got Pat here with me. He's also one of the other co-founders. And the general plan for today, I guess, is to walk over what Chainlink is, and then Chainlink in relation to DeFi. And then at the very end, we're going to cover a little bit of reputation and sort of building in the space. Throughout, if you've got any questions, just post them in the chat or speak up on the mic if that's enabled.
Yep. So anyone has any questions after the presentation, just raise your hands or click on the Q&A button down there, type the question, and we'll answer it for you.
Okay, sweet. So before we dive in too deep, I guess I'll cover the Oracle problem at a high level. So this is essentially what Chainlink was made to solve. So the Oracle problem is, in all these blockchain platforms like Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can't pull in outside data. So all this data that exists outside of the blockchain sphere, we can't really access. The only way to get that is to have it pushed on chain. So this kind of comes into the first problem, that we've got all this great data and all these interaction points off chain, but we can't do anything with it. So I guess the naive or the simple solution here is just, why don't we have someone write this data on chain? And that would work. You could have people writing data on chain. So you could create a little script or a little bot that gets the Bitcoin price every 5 minutes and writes it to a smart contract on Ethereum, or reports it somewhere on the blockchain. This is like what some people have done and people are doing. But this is kind of where there's a bit of a security problem here, essentially. So Ethereum, there's tens of thousands of nodes running this distributed network. It really doesn't make that much sense, and is a bit subpar from a security standpoint to have a single node reporting data. It's a big attack point. You can kind of see just straight away how this could be abused. So, let's take an example of like a gold options contract where you're betting on the price of gold, and at a certain date, it's going to settle with a price. If you just have one node submitting that data, you could see that one party could bribe the node with less than the value of the contract, get them to submit a false reading for the gold price, and then gain the output of the contract, pay off the node, and still be profitable. There's also just like general security attacks that could happen against the node. It could start reporting wrong data. The API could report wrong data. There's a whole heap of reasons, but essentially, this is a bit of a security problem. And this is kind of where Chainlink steps in itself. So Chainlink is a decentralized Oracle network. So rather than one node reporting the data, we just have heaps of nodes reporting the data. And this whole network, this whole community, like Omar said, has been building up over the years, and is really starting to get quite strong now. So if we take that same options contract example, instead of just having the single node report the gold data, we could now have 10 nodes reporting the gold price at that execution time. This provides much greater security. If one node is is manipulated, is down, is reporting the wrong data, you can aggregate the data returned by all the nodes and still be pretty sure that you're going to get a good price reading. So this is kind of Chainlink's strength and where they're playing right now. And this kind of feeds into the whole promise of Ethereum, I guess, or promise of smart contracts. We want this whole end-to-end secure, reliable system, but without good data, it's really hard to build good applications on Ethereum, essentially, that are secure and reliable end-to-end. So in the examples, I kind of touched on Chainlink inputting data, which is the easiest solution to understand from a basic standpoint, but Chainlink can also help plug in on the other side, as you can see on this diagram. So they can not only be the input, but also the output.
Was there a question?
Yeah. Do you want me to do questions as we go, Amar, or just...
No, we'll just do them. It's easier when we do them at the... Let me see what the question is. Yeah, I think doing them at the end would be better.
Okay, too easy. Yeah, so just expanding on that premise of like the full end-to-end system, I guess it would be kind of interesting to go over a potential contract that you could build with Chainlink. So let's go with a crop insurance contract. So you could have a party who's looking to insure their crop, and what this could mean is you have a smart contract that says if the temperature in their region goes below, say, 5 degrees Celsius for this example, we're going to pay out to cover the loss of crop. So we'd write this smart contract, and now we need to get our data. So we could set up a Chainlink temperature feed, which is reading in from 3 different weather APIs for that region, provided by 3 different nodes, and it's going to report the data every hour. Say they report the data and the aggregated temperature is 3.5 degrees. We can then actually have Chainlink plug in on the other side. So the contract will execute because the conditions of the contract were met. The insurer needs to pay out the insurance buyer, and we can actually then plug into off-chain systems. So we could have it trigger a PayPal payment if we wanted to plug into existing infrastructure, or we could have it trigger like an ERC20 token transfer. It could send out things through DocuSign confirming that the insurance was triggered. There's a whole array of opportunity, not only on the input, but also on the output, which is really quite exciting. Okay, so yeah, I guess as we mentioned, the Chainlink has really been growing quite rapidly. And most of that comes down to its support of DeFi at this point in time. So a quick touch on DeFi. Essentially, a lot of these applications being built currently, a whole array of smart contracts that are providing traditional finance infrastructure, but on Ethereum. So you've got things like lending and borrowing, synthetic assets, trading, all of these things, and a lot of them require reliable price feeds. So Chainlink has really stepped up here. They've got over 30 reference data contracts, which are essentially different feeds of prices on chain. And they've been providing really reliable and secure data to a lot of platforms. So platforms like Synthetics are using a lot of Chainlink contracts. So they've been really powering the DeFi ecosystem, which has been very apparent in the last few months. And so, yeah, I guess expanding on that, DeFi has really been taking off. You can see here, end of 2019, it was about 500 million total value locked. We're starting to approach 4 billion, and that's total value locked to, not just total transaction volume, which is pretty crazy. Another interesting thing that we've seen, which is quite cool from DeFi, is some of these DeFi protocols actually taking over traditional providers. So Curve had more stablecoin volume the other day than Binance, which is really interesting to see. And yeah, Chainlink is powering a lot of these. So that's kind of where the uptick in Chainlink interest, I guess, has kind of sparked recently.
Yep, so just taking over from Ray there. When looking from an infrastructure perspective, the DeFi smart contracts and Chainlink itself, there's two primary components. So you've got the off-chain component and you've got the on-chain component there. So just looking at that in the context of DeFi, you'll have plenty of different external data feeds. So APIs that are reporting market prices, for example. So you'll have multiple high-quality market price API providers that are reporting on crypto prices. Those multiple API providers optimally would be connected to multiple Chainlink nodes. So you're not relying on the one data provider, you're not relying on the one Chainlink node, you're relying on some sort of a mesh network of secure data providers there in order to get it on chain. So what will happen then is the Chainlink node, it's going to be connected to that API. It's going to receive that piece of market data. It's then going to convert that market data into a format that's readable by the Ethereum smart contract. And then as you see in the middle there, it is then reporting that answer that it's received from the API provider on chain. So there'll be many different oracles reporting answers. So they're reporting to the one, what's being called reference data contract at the moment. So for example, there might be 7 answers that have reported the Bitcoin price data, and those answers, they're all aggregated, taking the median answer for security purposes, and then the on-chain component, these DeFi applications, whether it be a synthetic asset protocol such as Synthetics, or other derivatives protocols or lending protocols, they'll be utilizing that answer that the Chainlink nodes have written on chain and referencing it for their own smart contracts. So just sort of expanding on that idea and looking at it in another way, if you wanted to go to feeds.chain.link, you can see which different data feeds Chainlink actually supports at the moment. Visualizing it there, what you've got is on the outside ring, you've got 21 different oracles, all are independent companies or organizations that are running this Oracle infrastructure. Secure Data Links is one of them there that Ray and I work with. So these entities in this example, they're all fetching from an API, the Bitcoin US dollar price, and then whether it be a deviation of 1% that they detect in that price or a heartbeat, say, of 1 hour or 10 minutes, they'll report that data on chain. So 21 of those different oracles, they're reporting the data into the middle contract. It's being aggregated, and the answer there, 9,274, that'll be able to be referenced by these DeFi protocols on chain. So decentralized finance, the promise of it, its value offering of these truly peer-to-peer financial agreements built on highly secure, verifiable, open source infrastructure in order for DeFi to continue to grow and accelerate in its usability, in its transparency, and in its value, I suppose. You are going to be needing a truly decentralized Oracle network. So in the context of Chainlink here, what you've got is many different exchanges that are being aggregated. The volume, just in the context of DeFi anyway, you've got the volume on different exchanges that are being aggregated by high quality data providers, which then you've got highly performant Chainlink node operators and nodes that they're connecting to these data feeds, supplying to the reference contracts for customers on chain to be using and protocols to be using, such as Aave, Ampleforth, Set, many different DeFi protocols at the moment utilizing these Chainlink smart contracts. And the reason for high security is that there's millions of dollars being used on Ethereum at the moment in DeFi. So slight variations in price that are off par from the market value can result in millions of dollars being lost in these contracts. So earlier this year in February, we had an attack of around 650 grand US dollars being lost. And then I think that was towards the end of 2019 or beginning of 2019 there was an issue with the synthetic asset protocol. Luckily, $37 million wasn't lost, but it was a security vulnerability that was exploited there. So Oracle security, just to reiterate, is very important if we want DeFi to be adopted by the mainstream. If we want DeFi to be usable, we need to be able to rely on the data that's being input into the system. So that's where Chainlink's stepping in. So going a bit further into the different oracles on the Chainlink network, and then sort of how these oracles are interacting with the different types of contracts, we built a tool called Reputation.link. So what Reputation.link provides is more deeper, granular insights into not only specific oracles, but specific interactions from DeFi protocols and the Chainlink network. So what this enables is just a high level of transparency. All of the transactions are obviously open source on Etherscan and on Ethereum. You can view the contracts, you can view all the transactions. What Reputation.link does is it just provides a bit more context to the end user of Chainlink in order to understand the solution, understand the oracle's performance a little bit better. As well as that, it sort of provides a bit of a holistic overview as to the Chainlink network itself. So stats of the last week, for example, you can see how many oracles are live on the system, how many unique requester or unique reference data contracts there are, how many total requests there's been, the user activity of the Chainlink network, and then different types of stats like the cost of gas price that the nodes are submitting on chain, and the amount of link that they've earned, as well as things like the completion ratio of those specific nodes. And then Reputation.link, it's also, as sort of mentioned, a transparency tool for these DeFi customers and DeFi protocols. So in the context of synthetics here, I'll just sort of run through a bit of an example. So how synthetics would be using Reputation.link is, for example, the gold synthetic, they'd be having multiple data providers at the beginning, gold API providers that are connected to multiple Chainlink oracles. These Chainlink oracles, they'd be submitting on-chain the answer of the gold contract. The synthetics protocol, they'd be referencing that data to be able to mint and trade these gold products on their exchange. So Reputation.link really, it breaks down those steps of from the data provider to the oracle, to the reference data contract, to the interactions with the DeFi protocol, really enabling a view of that end-to-end solution that is Chainlink. Then yeah, it's also a tool for developers. It really lets you get into the understanding of the Chainlink network at a deeper level, improve the security within your own contracts, and really visualize what's going on. But other than that, let's jump into a bit of a Q&A. It's probably a bit more of a productive session, and we'll try and explain or answer any questions. So,
yep.
Shoot away.
Yeah, I just want to switch off the share screen thing. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, so I'll ask Jade's question first. So I know in the beginning you were talking about why decentralized oracles and what the reason for that is. So the question here is, can you give an example of a company that used its own node and actually failed? Or do you have any knowledge of somewhere where it actually did fail?
Yeah, no, sure thing. So in one of those examples of the attacks slide, where that $37 million of synthetic ether was accrued, what you had was a centralized oracle that was being utilized by that protocol. It was referencing a Korean won price feed, if I'm correct there, and that API provider, they were reporting a significantly, it was either higher or lower price, which resulted in those millions of dollars of funds being lost and nearly stolen there. So yeah, that's sort of why you're wanting to use these decentralized networks to improve the security.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that is the main point of decentralization, is to remove that single point of failure. Magnus asking, do you guys run your own node? Yeah, you do, right?
Yeah, so we're one of the, I think, 40 or so oracles at the moment live on Chainlink network. Secure Data Links is that oracle that we operate.
Okay, so you answered my question, which was how many oracles are there? How many nodes are there? There's 40. So is that number changed? Is that fixed or?
No. So initially, from the beginning of the Chainlink network there was about 15 or so when they went live on May the 30th, which built up over time to around 21, and it's now sitting around that 35 to 40 mark. Not all of the nodes are completely active, so you might have 35 or 36 that are constantly reporting data each day and every day right now, maybe a few that are just inconsistent as per the demand, but that's sort of how it's set up right now. As the demand for the network grows, you can envisage more oracles being required from a security and payment perspective. Like the more security that you want, the more that you'll be paying for that data, and more nodes or oracles you'll be paying for that data as well. So as the usage grows, there will be more oracles coming online and performing those services.
And what's the minimum? Do you need a minimum amount at the moment of link to spin up a node, or is it more the data requirements that dictate?
Yep. So you don't actually need any link at the moment. They don't have staking live, so their intentions, or the intention of building out the Chainlink network, is to have a bit of a staking system, which is an economic guarantee that the data that you're providing is reliable. So right now that isn't in place, so you don't actually need any link to become an oracle. What you're needing to be doing though is you're needing to, I suppose, prove yourself to the Chainlink community and organization as an efficient infrastructure operator. So these oracles, if they go down longer than maybe 10 minutes, you're probably not doing a good enough job in any given day. So it's more of you need to have experience running high uptime infrastructure if you want to be getting onto these price feeds at the moment.
Yeah, cool. And just give us obviously you don't have to give us specifics, but just interested to know what is that level of infrastructure that you guys are running at the moment?
Yeah, sure. We actually open source all of ours, so there's no real secret source there. So it's all on Google Cloud at this point, and we're running. If for the people that know a lot about like containers and container orchestration, we're using Kubernetes, which is essentially a tool that runs these small little containers, which is our node, and it manages them. So if they ever crash, it'll restart them. So that kind of orchestrates everything. And then on top of that, we just tack on monitoring and alerting. So we use Google Cloud, again, built-in monitoring and alerting. So we have like quite a few different filters on our logs to check if things are operating as expected or if things are going wrong. And then that all hooks into PagerDuty, which just, can have it on full volume at any time. So we've had a few instances of getting paged at ridiculous hours, especially here in Australia. I think Black Thursday, because it's like peak time in America, is about 2 or 3 a.m. here. So we've had a few late Friday nights solving things, but that's essentially how it works, as long as we can react at all times if anything goes wrong. But we have some base level infrastructure to manage like easy cases of crashes and fixing small things. So
I have a question from Nikki, which I think you kind of answered right now. But so Nikki's asking, does Chainlink audit each oracle, and how do they do that? So I guess that's part of what you guys do with Reputation.link. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess they kind of feed in together is the idea. In terms of Chainlink auditing, it may have changed since we did it quite early on. But essentially early on, you had to prove you had some knowledge of the infrastructure you were running, prove you had alerting and you had run the node for a little bit. So you had experience on the test network and responding to certain test jobs before you kind of got the opportunity to step up and perform in the real world. But Reputation.link really aims to step in sort of in that role and to be used as a reference. So being able to transparently see how every node performs can kind of be used in that auditing process, right? So,
and is it the other? Sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Is it the other nodes that decide that? So I'm assuming the other nodes would decide if that specific node's providing good enough information, or?
At the moment, it's a fairly Chainlink curated process. We're hoping that it sort of opens itself up to be more of a community stakeholder driven process, but the team at smartcontract.com are the ones that are curating these, and they've done a very good job thus far. So, but yeah, on reputation.link as well, you can sort of prove yourself in the testnet environment too. So you're not actually spending real Ethereum or loading up real contracts. You can spin up testnet contracts, and all those transactions are analyzed as well. So if you're wanting to prove yourself as an operator.
Okay. I have two people asking this question. I'm assuming they're linkies. Any idea on when staking is going live or why it's not live yet?
So when, zero idea. It's been in the works for a long time from all we've heard. For the reason of why, I can't see any real reason other than the demand at the moment. It's the demand right now for Chainlink is purely in these DeFi reference data contracts. And at this point in time, Chainlink through the Link token are pretty well able to subsidize these node operators and provide high quality data inputs without these node operators staking their own Link and putting their reputation on the line. I see what they're doing right now as more of a longer term play. They're building up initially just security in the solution that is Chainlink, trustworthiness in the solution that's Chainlink, and then once you've got more than the current 40 oracles, building out that coordinated contract that sort of links up oracles to different DeFi protocols or different smart contracts on Ethereum in more of a trustless manner rather than the coordinated way that it's being done right now. Yes, when staking live, don't know why isn't it live. I guess the demand's not there at the moment, so they're focusing on other things.
And on that, so that's an interesting point at the moment. So then on as you said, the compensation you guys are getting for running nodes, is that a process where people, is that like well known, or is it again sort of a bit not so clear at the moment?
Yeah, so I think it's well known by people that are using Chainlink from a protocol developer's perspective. I don't think it's super well known that these node operators are getting paid in Link tokens at the moment. It's not super transparent. But yeah, how it's working is Chainlink, they'll find a customer such as Synthetics. They will be paying for a small portion of those Chainlink node operators at the moment. So each client, for example, you might have one Bitcoin price feed, and you might have 5 different Chainlink customers that are hooked up to that price feed. And each of those Chainlink customers will be providing a small amount of Link. Currently, the majority of the contracts are being subsidized by Chainlink, so they obviously have a bit of an incentivization fund that they've stored away to keep on incentivizing the network participants with Link tokens. So they're pretty right on that front for now, but from all we've spoken to, they're getting customers that are paying, which is good, and hope to eventually not have to subsidize node operators whatsoever.
Yeah, okay, cool. And on that, is it at the moment, as you said, like SNX is a good example, is majority of the data demand coming from like clients coming to to Link to say, this is what we'd like to see? Is there processes for you guys to say, look, I think we've got access to this data that's pretty interesting, we're willing to put this up, and is it a two-way thing, or is it more like, purely customer driven at the moment?
It's almost purely customer driven right now. We'd be happy to start offering up different types of data feeds on chain. For example, like a weather data feed, we'd be happy to be reporting that data, but Chainlink has a very good grasp of the demand in the market at the moment. You think Oracle, you think Chainlink, so they're a black hole in terms of people coming to them at the moment. We definitely could be going out there and doing that, but it doesn't make too much sense considering they've scoped the majority of the demand.
Yeah, okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I have a question from James here. What's the cost to spin up multiple nodes and provide an API feed to Sybil consensus?
Yeah, so I guess currently, like part of that we touched on, you're kind of limited to joining the network, so you couldn't really attack these reputable feeds. In terms of, if you wanted to spin up your own price feed and say you're offering, like we'll go the weather example, like the weather price for Brisbane, the temperature for Brisbane, and you own all 10 of the nodes, and you're just going to wait for someone to use it and then, destroy the feed. You'd have to be paying, I guess the only cost there is essentially infrastructure costs, which can be anywhere. It's usually like high hundreds per month at least. And then you'd have to be paying the gas price to be updating the price on the contract from the node, which is actually quite a significant cost, and then scale that by 10 nodes. So yeah, you'd be looking at a fairly expensive attack, but depending, and also you have that whole reputation problem to get past as well. So overall, I'd say to be pretty expensive there.
Yeah, that's wow. The questions are pouring in fast in this one. Okay, so this one's on demand. Give me a second. Customers buying you. What is my? Okay, so Nikki's question is pretty interesting. So, I mean, next 18 months, what type of data feeds do you think will see the biggest demand? Will still be some sort of DeFi or anything new, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I can't see anything taking over DeFi in terms of demand in the next 18 months for the data. Right now, you must be seeing the majority of foreign currency and crypto price data. A few protocols, decentralized finance protocols, are moving into the space of providing positions on maybe traditional assets or commodities markets as well. So I think you'll start seeing more stock price data, more commodities data, like index prices. There's a few synthetics indices there, the Nikkei and I think the NYSE or NASDAQ being used, the SPY here. But yeah, the majority of the data, in my view, will be DeFi related. It could be pushing into that weather futures markets as well, potentially. But in terms of the exotic markets right now, you do have Augur V2 that's come out today, and we'll see some pretty cool markets being spun up on there that aren't necessarily traditional DeFi.
You guys got a lot of interest, or I guess they would have, not maybe interest, but, over betting, gambling type data.
Yeah, well, Chainlink is selling pretty hard right now, that verifiable random function generator is what it's called, I think. So it's like an RNG, random number generator input that they're using for like different gambling applications. I'm not sure if there's any being built out or using it at the moment.
Probably on Tron.
yeah, probably. But yeah, there's definitely a big use case for that side of things. And the random number generator as well is picking up a bit of interest in gaming. So like in a random spin or a loot drop from something you kill in an MMORPG, like a monster or something, they drop a random item, and that can sort of be generated by a Chainlink random number generator algorithm. So that type of data could definitely be coming in pretty hot as well.
Yeah, okay.
John's asking, what type of smart contracts are you most excited to see in the future?
Do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, right. I guess from my point of view, I might steer a little bit away from the data the contracts are using and just more the setup that I'm pretty excited to see. So yeah, we kind of touched on, Chainlink is organizing all these data feeds, but when you have individual nodes or individual communities being built around providing data for something, and they're sort of self-organizing and being able to organize, these are the feeds we're going to use to do this. This is the contract we're going to use. Sort of like this fully distributed pattern, I guess. I think when we get that point, that'll be really exciting. So you could have things spinning up really quickly in communities that need data to do something. So even just like on-demand jobs, or potentially even one-off jobs that you need to report a really secure price at this point in time. And the setup for that might be quite complex with a lot of nodes, but it can be done in a fully distributed way. I think when we hit that point, that will be really exciting from my point of view.
Yeah, we're pretty well focused on the DeFi market at the moment, so a lot of our excitement is in the DeFi smart contracts. Seeing these decentralized autonomous organizations, the DAOs being built around and governing certain unstoppable protocols, like those types of smart contracts are pretty incredible. The coordination benefits and efficiencies that can be achieved through a vote and sort of pseudonymous transactions. And really exciting.
DeFi is still, I mean, again, even going back to the 18 months question, DeFi is still at the beginning and we have 4 billion locked up. I mean, I can only imagine what's going to happen in 2 months' time or 6 months' time, or it's... So this is, okay, Leon's asking a question that was my main question for you guys, is Link's okay, he's asking about other competitors in the DeFi smart contract space. Okay, let's talk about Link's competitors. Who are Link's main competitors in your opinion, and why is Link better?
Yep, so from an Oracle perspective, you have Band Protocol there.
Yeah.
You've also got Teller, who are another, both of them are decentralized Oracle networks. In terms of what's better, I think it's a pretty hard one to say. It's a fairly simple function of inputting off-chain data on-chain and coordinating that in a decentralized manner. I think Chainlink has really had the first mover advantage and has some pretty incredible branding and marketing associated with their protocol. And through that, they've achieved a lot of, they've educated a lot of people on the idea of oracles. And I think their solution right now in terms of what they've built out is far superior compared to the other Oracle networks. But then just oracles in general, you have these decentralized exchanges such as Uniswap, where they've sort of baked in price oracles on top of their dexes. So any ERC20 tokens that can be traded on these bonding curves, you have this price point. I think they're using a time-weighted average price, but you can reference these decentralized exchanges for these price reference data contracts. I think more and more as liquidity builds up on exchanges, on decentralized exchanges over time, there'll be maybe less important, less use for like Chainlink crypto price feeds, and more need for Chainlink like stock prices that aren't traded natively on Ethereum, or commodities that aren't natively traded on Ethereum. So yeah, there's plenty of different ways to achieve the Oracle solution. Augur again is another one of them, like the decentralized vote coming in on one set. But yeah, there's no best solution to oracles in my view. It's just that Chainlink's achieved a fairly secure solution that's worked well so far.
Down the road, do you see them kind of like working together, or would that something like that be possible even down the road, like Band and Chainlink, just
maybe,
or they just be different service providers, just we have? Yeah,
they are fairly different in their makeup, Band and Chainlink.
I think the thing is going to get people is that with Chainlink, when the Chainlink price went up, is you started seeing a lot of projects popping up and advertising they're doing oracles. Like they started going heavy on the oracle. This is what we do. We do oracles, hoping to catch that run. That tends to happen a lot. Can Chainlink be used on other blockchain protocols besides Ethereum? Yeah.
Yeah. So they can, from what I understand, it can be used pretty easily on other EVM-based protocols. But they're also starting to build up adapters to be used on any blockchain protocol. So that's part of the grand vision for Chainlink, I guess, not to just be Ethereum based, but to be across protocols.
Okay. Jake has a question. I'm going to bring Jake on. We have 2 questions in the thing, but I'll answer those. That's fine. So Shazan, in terms of how do you measure the value of Link, nobody in the world can tell you that. It's the same as what's the price of Bitcoin, what's the price of Ethereum, what's the price of anything. Nobody can answer that question, and we can't actually answer it because it's not relevant. Are customers currently buying Link from exchanges to pay for nodes? No, the prices of thing go up because of traders. Has nothing to do with that. That's done.
But that's answer, yes, like DeFi protocols are buying Link to pay node operators. To answer that, like they are buying.
DeFi protocols are buying Link to pay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So that would create some demand from there as well. So that's
that's right. Yeah.
okay. Jake, you're on.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining. This has been great. I've been FOMO buying on Kraken Chainlink as you've been talking, realizing that I potentially wasn't bullish enough. So well done, flying the flag. In all seriousness, though, apart from buying more Chainlink, when you look at solutions that are out there with more established companies like Oracle itself, or with Microsoft in particular, they're trying to solve this problem as well, right? The database problem, the trust problem, integrating Amazon's also got solutions that they're trying to run. Sometimes they'll integrate with Ethereum, but this concept of decentralized oracles solves a lot of problems in lots of industries. You referenced the BOM data for Australia with farming. That's a fascinating example. I've done similar work with the weather company in Canada, where weather data in East Coast cities is critically important to lots of decision making and things like this. And these solutions didn't exist then. Had they have known that they are existing, they could plug into a bunch of things. How do you see Chainlink solving problems through major companies like Oracle or Amazon or Microsoft? And are there already things in place where they're testing and playing with Chainlink to potentially solve things instead of building their own stack?
Yeah. So in terms of the Chainlink solution, they've built out the Chainlink core, which is the piece of infrastructure that allows these node operators to connect up to certain APIs and then pretty seamlessly report that data on chain. So that's all open source. I can see these bigger corporations potentially installing the Chainlink core on top of their databases in order to connect up their databases onto multiple different blockchain solutions. Whether the link token is applicable in those instances, I'm not so sure. They built out really good infrastructure that can be used, but whether the crypto economics are aligned for these larger enterprises, that's definitely something that is yet to be seen. If that answers your question there, Jake. Or
yeah, no, thank you.
No, I think you pretty well covered it.
I think he wants to hurry up and get off so you can just go FOMO buying more.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So Nick is asking another. So secure data link. Are you guys actually? So you guys are running, or are you servicing any customers in Australia, or your customers global? What's it? If you can share that information, I don't.
Well, yeah, if you want to consider Synthetics as an Australian customer,
Synthetics is Australian.
I guess you could. No independent companies that have sort of come to us to get their data needs. It's more so on the Chainlink front, coming to us, and then we're just connecting up the relevant pieces of data for different DeFi protocols. So yeah, we're servicing international protocols, I suppose. I'm not sure where all of these DeFi protocols are domiciled, which I think is the beauty and the nature of DeFi. So yeah, it's more of just a network type of thing.
Yeah, that's
physical jurisdiction type of thing.
Yeah, it's because people will go to Chainlink for the information. It won't come specifically to you, and you'll be part of that ecosystem. Yeah. So, I mean, if no one's going to ask any more questions, I'm going to ask my question. So, the community, my attraction to Chainlink was how strong the Chainlink community is. I mean, you guys are like diehard, full on. So, how did that happen? Any idea? What's the secret there? Where did all that love come from? How long has Chainlink been around for? Let's just start there.
Yeah, well, it ICO'd, I think September 2017 is when they went into the public facing sphere. I know a couple of the founders there, Sergey and Steve, they were pretty early on in the Bitcoin and Ethereum space and sort of tried to develop a digital asset exchange, I think back in 2014, utilizing off-chain data, and pretty quickly realized that oracles were important back then. I'm not sure why Chainlink's got such a unique community.
It surprises me because there's no marketing. It's not like somebody went out there and just pushed it, like made it happen, like Tron did, for example. They kept pushing it until it happened. But with Chainlink, it just happened.
Yeah, all the ETH heads, they were pretty
The 4chan craziness.
yeah, some craziness for sure. All the Ethereum heads that were really early on in Ethereum, I think they sort of dismissed the Oracle problem a little bit, not in terms of its importance or severity, but like they're truly these decentralized diehards. They want to use Augur over anything Chainlink because Chainlink, in their view, is too centralized, which I get the argument. You've got a few node operators coordinated by a Chainlink company that's reporting the start of it. I think Chainlink tapped into, through their marketing and education, an idea that hadn't properly been explained to a lot of people that were getting into the space. So I think the way that Sergey was able to speak about Chainlink and market their vision with it, they really attracted a lot of people that bought into what probably could be considered the sci-fi narrative of Chainlink, but I think it's coming into fruition, the whole vision anyway. So on why it's such a crazy community, it's a hard one, but the team itself, they keep doing good things and they keep impressing their follower base, I suppose. So there's no reason not to in that sense.
Oh, yes. I'm all for that. Like, I'm openly massive Dogecoin advocate because of the Dogecoin community. It's just simple. Tech doesn't really matter to me much. I mean, as long as the community is there and you're willing to support it, I mean, what the people want, people get. Okay, guys, seriously, they're asking about Rory's dad and if 1K end of year is possible. What do you call it? Okay, let me see. Okay, so I mean, Chainlink right now, most of Chainlink's existence right now depends heavily on Ethereum and DeFi. Assuming that didn't exist, where would... Well, I guess that doesn't really apply because if Ethereum went down, something else would replace it, and I guess Chainlink would serve as that new chain that takes over Ethereum instead of...
That's the bet with the Link token anyway, so...
Yeah, that's... Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Jade, 1K end of year possible again. I hope so, but no financial advice here. Of course, you can't trust me. It does not have a good name. Partnerships. That's something that Chainlink seems to excel a lot at. They've essentially, I mean, every second day we see a new partnership with a new major organization. I mean, is that all Chainlink's doing? What's happening there? Is most of it memeing? Is it real? I mean, the Microsoft stuff, the Google stuff, the World Economic Forum thing where they got an award for being one of the startups of the year. Is that all meme stuff or does that really happen?
They've got a very competent team of business developers and marketers that are working with them. They've got a lot of inflow as well, but in terms of the protocols and apps and just all these different people building in the space, Chainlink is trying to become that authority on oracles, and they definitely are that authority on oracles. So you'll see Sergey speaking with plenty of different people. So they do a pretty good job on the marketing and business development front, for sure.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but do you have any comments on the Zeus Capital Fund?
Yeah, they've got an interesting take, that's for sure. I haven't read the report in depth. I think they do highlight a few inefficiencies within the Chainlink network, certainly, and I think they have some pretty fair takes with regards to the price being zero. Though I don't completely understand at the moment. DeFi itself is a massive speculative bubble, and there's value to it, of course, but it's a hard one to quantify in any sense. So on the Zeus Capital Fund, it's interesting to see how they've gone about it, taking the short position and then promoting it on Twitter through ads. It's pretty fun to watch anyway.
Well, they have an incentive to promote it. They win if they get their short. That's number one. Number two, I think people need to really be aware. We're getting into another bull season. This is very, very common in bull seasons where you'll see influencers, people have pull funding projects. It happens to just not, Chainlink was just very publicized because of the promotion, but during a bull season, you'll always get FUD because people will do that to buy your bags cheaper and then sell them back to you higher. It's just very standard practice in crypto. It's nothing
exact same in standard equities markets as well. You're going to have entities set up specifically to be short selling and then running.
I think you're going to get more of those style campaigns. And I think it's going to be interesting. So essentially, in my opinion, what they're going to keep doing is they're going to keep targeting it towards coins that have very high concentration of ownership and also potentially very high concentration in staking. So, you looked at what happened with SNX back in March. Obviously, that was not a FUD campaign. That was just the broader market having a significant sell-off. But, the amount that was in staking at the time, it just exacerbated the sell-off and almost pushed into that area of where people are going to have to liquidate to keep their, maintain their 800% collateral and things like that. And obviously Kane and the team did a terrific effort to get ETH collateral added to it to stabilise it a lot. And, the market recovering helps. But I think you're going to see more and more targeted attacks against projects that have those very specific features. And I think you're seeing a lot of, in those cases, in both the SNX case and Link case, it's being derived from more of a fundamental point of view as to why that's happened. But I think you're going to see projects of where they're mimicking those attributes because they've seen how successful they've been in other projects, but they don't have the same, fundamentally strong reason for why people want to do that. I think they're the ones that'll get, you could see some projects get toppled pretty heavily in those style of attacks because, if on exchange balances are very low, it's quite easy for a significant player to push those tokens lower.
Yeah, definitely. Agree 100%.
That's an interesting question. Are there any designs or models on Chainlink that support pulling data on chain?
Yeah, I wouldn't say pulling data on chain, but they've come up with some interesting things to kind of, I guess, mimic that behavior. So like the latest one being the Flux aggregator, which essentially off chain, you watch the price and rather than writing it, say, every hour, you actually look at the price that was last reported and you monitor your own off-chain price. And if there's a certain deviation, so say the price changes by 1%, then you trigger an update again on-chain. So they're sort of coming up with these models like that where it's obviously not pull. You can't just have the smart contract automatically pull in data. But if you set it up off-chain correctly to know when the smart contract would need data, you can almost mimic a pull in that sense. You just have to know the parameters to know when you want to trigger. So there'll probably be some interesting things coming out of that area. But again, it's only prices at this point, so it's not going to get too crazy. But yeah, the actual pulling itself is pretty near impossible because smart contracts can't be autonomous. But yeah, they've worked on things that get close.
Well, yeah, there has to be a creative way to work around it and achieve the same result, I guess. Someone just needs to find it. Jade's asking about the Oracle startup partnership. She wants you to explain it.
Yep.
Do you know what that is?
Yeah. So Oracle, they had a few startups that were working on incorporating Chainlink into their code. I'm fairly sure was how it was working. I think how that originated was there was a member that was pretty close with the Chainlink team there from Oracle, and he really pushed Chainlink as a solution to these Oracle startups. I'm not sure how much further it's gone from there or what the results been, but yeah, interesting marketing one again.
Okay. Anyone? Final questions? No meme questions though, please, because I'm not going to answer them. No price questions either. No, we're good. Okay, we're good. Yeah, because this is actually pretty interesting. I think I kind of understand where Chainlink fits in all this now. It makes a lot more sense to me. A bit too lazy to read. I thought this was easier. Much more informative, I can tell you that much. No, but thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate coming on and having a chat with us. That was very, very informative. We do appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for attending. I'll have the video this posted up if anyone wants to see it later and share it. But yeah, thanks, guys. Take care and talk soon.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers for having us.
Cheers, Omar. Thanks, Grant.